Everyone talks about the power of data-driven instruction, but what does that actually look like? Look no further than iExcel, the ultimate online learning and teaching platform for K to 12. iExcel gives you meaningful insights that drive real progress, and research can prove it. Studies in nearly all 50 states across the US show that schools that use iExcel outperform other schools on state tests. Educators who use iExcel love that they can easily see how their schools are performing in real time to make better instructional decisions. And iExcel doesn't stop at just data. iExcel also brings an entire ecosystem of resources for your teachers with a complete curriculum, personalized learning plans, and so much more. It's no wonder that iExcel is used in 95 of the top 100 school districts. Ready to join them? Visit iexcel.com/PM to get started.
You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Hi, friends. This is Will Parker back with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, for another Monday Matters. Jen, you just had spring break. Welcome back from some fun. And I get to see the tan, and I know you literally flew in and logged in for this meeting. Like you're just, I can't believe the commitment you have.
Well, anybody who's actually watching the video of this will think, where's Jen? She's never been in that place before. So as I told you offline, I was in Florida this morning, caught a very, very early flight, flew back to Central Ohio, and then my parents are watching my puppy on their farm. So I got in the car and drove there, but they don't have internet access clear out in the boondocks there. So I'm at the county library right now. By the way, I love libraries. Can we just...
I do too. I was just on the phone yesterday with a former student who had reached out to me just to catch up. And actually, I'll be a little more open, and I don't think the student will mind, but the student had just lost her father. And so she'd reached out because we've known each other since, Jen, 1993 when I was a first year teacher, and she was in my building, and now she has a degree in education and is, and she told me, she said, one of the places I like to go when I need to just find peace is the library. And I thought, I bet she's not the only one that where libraries are that kind of setting for people.
Well, and this is not at all what this episode's about, but two things. I called the library yesterday. I got a librarian, and I'm like, help, I need to record a podcast. I need to be alone. I'm going to be making some noise, but what do you have? And she's like, no problem, honey. You just come on in. And she put me in this beautiful room. But for listeners, anybody who has a love affair with libraries, read Susan Orlean's The Library Book. Amazing, amazing book. And this woman is an incredible writer and a deep researcher. And it's just about libraries and the magic they bring to our world. So read The Library Book.
Jen, I want to set the tone. Thank you for that reference. And kudos to Wayne County Library for letting me their facility today for recording this. But in last week's Principal Problems newsletter that you put out, which every time I get the opportunity to encourage people to subscribe, I am telling you, subscribe. You also talk about a moment of grief. And I ask you, are you okay to talk about this? Because you wrote about it. And sometimes writing and talking are two different things. But you've walked through some situations in the last couple of months, and you titled this one, Why Work Matters. And so is it okay if you just go there? Because I would love for listeners to hear this story too.
Yes, absolutely. And I am ready to talk about this. It's been 3 months. So, Will, you know my dog, Roxy, because many times Roxy was next to me while we were recording. And you would show me your dog, Ivy, and I would show you Roxy, and we would giggle that we had such great companions. So I lost my beloved Roxy. We were running. It was very, very, very early in the morning in January. It was cold, and she was running alongside me. And this dog, you guys, was an amazing creature. She had run about 16,500 miles with me. She was at my side for every step. As a matter of fact, I had always been a runner, but she made me a extra long distance runner because this dog was so psychotic. She needed to run many miles. And so we did. We ran lots of miles together. So anyway, bright early morning, sun was just coming up, and she stirred up a rabbit, and she got away from me. And it was kind of out of character because she had kind of moved past that in her life. The rabbits, she kind of gave up on them, but she didn't give up on this one. And she was unfortunately hit by a car. And killed instantly, which is of some comfort to me. I turned around and it was over. And the reason I shared this story in my newsletter was because I thought it was important for principals, for educators, for leaders of all types to think about days like that. We all have them. Even, if you're not a dog person, if you don't have a dog, if but we all have loved ones and loved creatures, and they have bad days. And so what happened that day is, my husband came and we carried Roxy to the vet, and we carried her to the truck and then to the vet. And, we said our goodbyes, and then I went home and just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and it got to be, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9. My boss had said, "Take all the time you need." My colleague said, "Take all the time you need." And I thought, "I can sit here and I can be absolutely miserable all day, and I can cry until there are no tissues left on the planet, but I can also go to work." And if I go to work, what I'm gonna find is colleagues who aren't gonna make me talk about this. I'm gonna find work that needs to be done. I'm gonna have phone calls that need to be returned. I'm gonna have problems that are gonna feel like they're gonna take all my cognitive energy to solve, and that's what I need right now. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying this works for everyone at all. For some people, healing looks like getting under the covers and having the tea and watching the Netflix. For me, I drove to work and I managed to make it a productive day. And I did that the next day too, and the next day. My colleagues and the work itself was a very safe place to fall during that very dark day. And I didn't write that to be any sort of martyr. I was not going to work because they needed me so badly. On that day, it was the opposite. It was that I needed that work and my people, my colleagues, in order to stay productive and have a day that I could be proud of.
Well, Jen, I want to add a couple of thoughts, and I also want to let listeners know that um, as a part of this conversation too, before I forget to say it, um, I want to talk about your new puppy. But before we talk about your new puppy, I just want to speak to this for a minute because a couple of things. One, you're right. Everyone responds to grief in different ways. And for some people, that isolation or that being alone time or that whatever, some people need that. Some people need a really good breakfast and a place to sit with a meal that's gonna help them to re-energize and reconnect. Some people need to jump right back into the routines so that they can feel some sense of control, whatever it is. This podcast episode isn't because we're trying to prescribe how to respond to hard times. The point you're trying to make is sometimes the very thing that we are serving in becomes a place of healing for us too. And we show up every day because we have this mission, we have this call, we have this um, intention of helping other people. And that's the wonderful thing I think about service is that often the person that you end up helping is yourself too along the way. I'll never forget, it was 3 years ago in March when my dad passed away, and it was an unexpected situation. He was at home. I've told this story before. He had lost his appetite. My brother was there to help him make dinner, and dad always had a great appetite, and then this night he barely touched his food, and then he just wanted to go lay down on the couch. So my brother took his blood pressure and realized it was really low and asked, "Can I take you to the hospital?" And dad, I think he knew what was happening. He was just like, "You know what? You can call an ambulance, but if I'm gonna go, I'd rather go right here in my house than in some cold room up there at the hospital." So he laid down on the couch, and my brother and my mom got to hold his hands and say goodbye because he passed before that ambulance got there, and they did not resuscitate him. Um, when I got the news that morning, because I got an early call, everybody starts getting the call. I was, I had been booked for a flight to a conference out of state, and it was gonna be a couple of days before I could even get through there and then back up to the family in Tennessee for the service, and they had already set the date. And I just remember feeling like trapped, like I wanna be there, but I also have this place to go. And for me, Jen, the question, and again, I'm not prescribing this, but for me, the question was, if I was talking to Dad about my this morning about what should I do next, what would he say? And he would say, "Well, why don't you get up and go to work?" Because that's exactly what he would say. "Well, why don't you just get up and go to work?" And so I did. I got up and I got ready and I went to work. And it was so weird to be in a setting where I'm serving and helping other people while knowing my family's waiting and I'm going to be there next because I changed my flight to go straight there afterwards. But it also felt good to be doing what I knew I needed to do in that moment to serve other people and what I kind of knew he'd want me to do in that moment too, because that's what he would have done. Um, there's good news on the other side. Let me let you speak to that.
I was just gonna say, I remember when I was a principal at an elementary school, there was someone who worked there who was, and I might write about this next, who was intensely dedicated to her work, and her mother passed away, and she came to work that day, and we were all like, go home," and finally she said, "Stop it. This is where I need to be." About 6 months later, another colleague in that building, her mother died, and she called and she said, "I'll be back in a month. I'm going home. I'm gonna go be with my sisters. I'm gonna be with my dad." And we all said, Great." Like, everybody's different, every situation's different, every flight is different, right? And
Yes.
so I think that what we're trying to get out here is work is in our marrow, right? It is a part of who we are, and it can either be therapy or it can be, the lack of it for a bit could be therapy. It's just you have to follow your instincts and, ask who that person is. In your case, it was your dad. What would my dad advise me to do? And follow that right thing. That's really what it's
Yeah.
about.
No, and I'm glad you said that, Jen. You and I both have walked through the grief of losing students in our schools. We've walked through the grief of losing staff members in our schools. We've walked through the grief of losing family. Um, in every one of those situations, you have to be flexible. Sometimes teachers need to just jump right back into routine to give kids that sense of stability. Sometimes they need to pause and let kids be creatively to do some creative grieving. I'll tell one other story, and I know this whole episode's not just about like loss, but because we're going to talk about some happiness here in a moment. Um, but when we had a student loss one time at the high school level, um, we kind of had to play all those cards of okay, back to stability, back to our schedule. Let's don't forget the other kids that are doing great things here. But then I had one teacher in particular that came to me at the end of the day, and she was a math teacher, and it was probably 5th or 6th period that day when all the kids came in for the first day they would be there without that student present, and this was a group of kids that had become really close, and she said she tried to start class, and it was just so awkward, and finally, one of the kids was just like, "Can we talk about this?" And so they did, and she asked them, "Is there anything you wanna just do, like, as an expression of love to her or to her family?" And they said, "Can we write on her desk?" And so she got a bunch of Sharpies. And I love this so much because she didn't come and ask anybody's permission. She told me about this afterwards when I came down to look at the desk, and it had notes all over it from every kid in there, just love notes, things they appreciated about. And of course, she gave that desk to the family. Um, Jen, you can't like script this stuff. Um, and that's the beautiful thing about community is it gives you a place to live out the good times and the hard times together too. Um,
Well, that's yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it back to that because that is the word, right? It's community. It's our work community, it's our school community, it's the kids. And I think sometimes we need given permission to express our feelings, whether it's grief or joy or happiness or fury or whatever. I think about um, you know, a situation where students might need to stage a walkout. They may need to do something. And what a safe and productive setting it is when we have that community. And when we are also willing to recognize that we wouldn't react in a certain way, but it's okay that someone else does. I think about anyone who doesn't have children and is constantly being told, well, you don't understand. Um, well, that's not really fair, right? Because I may not understand, but I do have the empathy to recognize that I don't live it, but I can still understand. So it's really about the community. I'm glad you used that word. That's where we were getting with this.
Yeah, well, the other thing I appreciated about your post was the reminder that, when you showed up to work, when you reconnected with the people on your teams, they weren't expecting a perfect Jen either. And so I
Mm-mm.
think it's important for leaders and teachers to just I'm not I never wanna suggest transparency to the point of uncomfortableness or discomfort, but I do think it's important for us to let people know what's going on with you. Because if you've back when I was in the classroom, if I was going through a difficult time, I'd just tell my students, and they showed me an enormous amount of grace sometimes when things like this were happening. Um, and then enter Sammy. Tell us a little bit about Sammy because Sammy is both a joy, but Sammy's also been also a chore. And so part of the healing process too is working through the joys and the challenges of a new friend.
Yeah, so you guys, I loved Roxy with every bone in my body, partly because I had gotten her to where she was a perfect dog. She was so good. It's easy to forget the first 2 years. Well, I had some time to heal. I had a few months to heal, and then the perfect rescue situation came up, and this dog had been found in Kentucky, pregnant with 11 pups. And so fast forward, Sam is now part of our household, and Sam is nicknamed Hurricane Sam. Oh my gosh, this dog. He's a smart dog. He's a loving dog. It's gonna be great, but a lot of work. And this is it there are a lot of parallels to what we do every day as educators. You have faith. You have faith that the amount of work that's being put into this project will be fruitful in the end. And I think I said in my newsletter, I don't love Sam yet. I will. I absolutely will. Right now, Sam is not yet on my devoted list. But as soon as he's potty trained, I think I will love him.
One of my favorite lines in your last newsletter was, "Last week I came into work after he was up crying several times and had a couple of messy accidents. I had hardly slept. I looked rough." And you put it in italics. And the funny thing, Jen, is that morning that your newsletter came out, I woke up and I had seen your post and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I talk to Jen all the time for recording, but these were not stories you had told me yet." And so I was just, of course, first of all, walking through what that must have been like for you and what it must be like now with Sammy. And here's the irony of ironies. I haven't even told you this yet. I'm just doing it live with Principal Matters listeners. But I got up to go downstairs to get Ivy ready to run because we run together. And I guess Ivy had an upset stomach because she had messed all over the downstairs. And I spent my first half hour cleaning up. And I was just like, what timing? What timing?
I cursed you, Will. I cursed you and I cursed Ivy. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. It's
Feeling
very easy to
sentimental.
forget how much you love this creature when there's a
Oh,
mess
but I
going
thought
on.
it was so appropriate, and I'll just wrap it up with this, Jen, that there's so many emotional ups and downs that we have in work and in life, and sometimes even the most sentimental moments can often just be blown up with the reality of some mess we've got to clean up. And so if you're listening to this today, I hope you've enjoyed hearing, from Jen sharing from a really personal place in experience in work and life, but I'm also hoping as you think about your own human experience that give yourself some grace. You are not a robot. You're not a superhero. You're a person, and persons are the reason that we do this work. So be okay with being a person yourself. And Jen, any other thoughts you want to add as we wrap up today's conversation?
Just lean into that community. It's there to support you when you need it. So lean into it. And then when it's your turn to give back, you will want to do so. So
I love
so
that.
definitely that. So Will, you're usually the one that says this. So let me grab it for today. Where can people find you if they
Oh
want
my
more
gosh.
information?
They can find me at my website at williamdparker.com, where they can check out all of our podcasts. And, Jen, we're getting close to our 500th. So if you have something you would like to say to celebrate that anniversary, please send us a voice memo of some kind. Um, And Jen, how can folks stay connected with you and your wonderful work and sign up for your newsletter?
Yeah, sign up for my newsletter at my website, jenschwanke.com. It's an easy sign up, and then every Tuesday, the newsletter will come. So thanks, everyone, and lean into that community.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.